I was no longer trapped in my own fear. The chains, the weight of my past mistakes, and the burden of my doubts all began to lift, like a cloud slowly parting to reveal the sun. I saw the path forward, and it was clearer than ever. But here's the thing. They don't want you to know this secret. A single prayer, one genuine plea, can rewrite everything.
Before we proceed into this unbelievable testimony, I need you to hit that like button, subscribe to our channel, and share this video with anyone who might need to hear this life-altering message. Trust me, you won't want to miss the moment when everything changes. As you listen to this powerful experience, I want you to reflect. What is the one prayer that could change your life? Drop it in the comments below, and let's begin this journey together.
My name is Clara Muller, and I'm from Hamburg, Germany. I've always been a pretty ordinary person, nothing too out of the ordinary. I work as a nurse, I love my family, and I live a quiet life. But everything changed the day I died. It wasn't something dramatic like an accident or a heart attack. No, it happened slowly, almost without warning. I had eaten some food at a restaurant, a simple meal, but something in it was tainted. What followed was nothing short of a nightmare. I started feeling dizzy, then nauseous. Within hours, I couldn't keep anything down. My body was shutting down, and there was nothing anyone could do. The doctors tried everything, but nothing helped. I died from food poisoning. But this story isn't about how I died. It's about what happened after. Something I never could have imagined. Something that I would have never believed if I hadn't experienced it myself. It's about the encounter I had with Jesus Christ. And trust me, it's not something you want to miss. When I crossed over, I felt like I was floating, weightless, drifting away from my body. There was no pain, but there was a deep, cold emptiness. It felt like the very core of me was being ripped apart, a terrifying void where there should have been warmth. I could see my body below, but it was distant, like it didn't even belong to me anymore. I was then pulled into a darkness that I can still feel in my bones, a place of utter silence. No sound, no light, just a feeling of deep dread that pressed in on every side. It was like being trapped in an endless, suffocating space. I felt lost. There was no escape, no way out. It's hard to explain unless you've experienced it yourself, but every part of me screamed for something more, something to hold on to, but there was nothing. And then I saw it, a light in the distance, a light that felt like life itself. But as it came closer, I realized this wasn't just any light. This was Jesus. He stood there, bathed in light, radiating warmth, love, and power like I've never known before. His presence was so overwhelming, I felt like I was standing in front of something far bigger than myself. I was suddenly aware of every wrong choice I'd ever made, every sin, every regret. I couldn't hide from the truth anymore. But then, in the silence, he spoke. What he told me next is something I will never forget. He told me that prayer, one simple prayer, had the power to destroy 1,000 demonic strongholds. My mind couldn't wrap around it at first. I had always thought prayer was just a ritual, something to do when things got tough. But in that moment, I realized it was so much more than that. Prayer was a weapon, a divine force capable of breaking chains that had held me captive for years. I was overwhelmed with the realization of how much I had underestimated the power of prayer. I had no idea how deeply it could impact my life and the lives of others. I wasn't just being given a glimpse of heaven or a feeling of peace, but something so much greater, the power to fight back against the forces of darkness. Forces that I hadn't even been aware of until that moment. But it wasn't just about the power of prayer. It was about how it changes your relationship with God. I had always prayed, but I hadn't prayed with purpose. I hadn't understood that prayer wasn't just asking for help, but was a way to connect with God, to stand firm in His power and authority. It was a way to reclaim what had been lost. If I hadn't experienced it myself, I would never have believed how prayer could break through barriers and unlock the door to freedom. It was in that moment that I truly understood what it meant to be free from sin. I learned that no matter how far I had fallen, no matter the darkness that surrounded me, there was always a way back. There was always hope. I'm telling you this because I don't want you to miss out on what I've learned. Prayer can change everything. It can destroy the strongholds in your life. It can bring you closer to God, and it can lead you into a place of true freedom. And if I can learn this, so can you. The near-death experience, encountering Jesus in the spirit realm. When I died, it wasn't like anything I had expected. One moment I was lying in a hospital bed, fighting for breath, and the next I was detached from my body, floating above it. I could see everything, yet it felt like I wasn't really there, like I was observing from a distance. There was no pain anymore, no struggle, just nothing. A heavy silence that filled the space around me. But then in that emptiness, I saw it. A light. At first, it was just a small speck in the distance, but as it grew closer, I realized this wasn't just any light. This was a presence, a being. It was Jesus. His form was glowing, brighter than anything I had ever seen. His light didn't hurt my eyes, though. It was gentle, warm, and welcoming. It felt like the light itself was embracing me. As he drew nearer, I could feel his power, an overwhelming sense of peace, but also authority. Like he was someone I should kneel before, but at the same time, someone who made me feel completely loved and understood. I knew, in that moment, that I was standing in front of someone far beyond anything my mind could comprehend. There were no words exchanged at first, but there didn't need to be. His presence spoke louder than anything I could have said. I could feel everything, the weight of my sins, the regret, the mistakes I had made throughout my life. But what shook me the most was that I wasn't being condemned for it. Instead, there was this immense understanding, this deep compassion. It was as if he already knew everything, yet still, he didn't turn away from me. He stood there with me, as though I was exactly where I was meant to be, even in my brokenness. And then he spoke. He told me that he was there to reveal something to me, something that would change everything I thought I knew about my life. He told me about the power of prayer. Not just any prayer, but one that could destroy 1,000 demonic strongholds. I couldn't fully grasp it at first. The idea of a single prayer having that kind of power, it was unfathomable to me. But the more he spoke, the more I understood. Prayer wasn't just asking God for help or offering thanks. It was a tool, a weapon in the spiritual realm, and it could tear down barriers I hadn't even known existed. In that moment, I was shown the spiritual consequences of my actions, how each prayer, each choice, had the potential to shift things in the unseen world. What was most striking was the way Jesus explained it. He told me that it wasn't about the strength of my words, but the power behind them. It was about faith. It was about knowing who I was praying to and trusting that God had the power to move mountains. And then, in the same breath, he revealed to me how many strongholds I had unknowingly allowed in my life. These forces were trying to hold me back, to keep me from seeing the truth, from embracing the full power of prayer. The realization hit hard. I had spent so much of my life unaware of the battle that was going on behind the scenes. But in that moment, I knew what needed to be done. I needed to pray with purpose. I needed to pray with belief. I needed to fight back against the things that had kept me bound. As quickly as he appeared, he was gone. But the light, that overwhelming peace, stayed with me. I could feel it within me, a constant reminder of what I had learned. I knew that I wasn't just given a glimpse of heaven or a peaceful moment. I was given a key, a way to break free. But what I also realized is this: if I hadn't seen Jesus face to face, I might never have fully understood the importance of prayer. I wouldn't have understood how much power I held within my own hands. It was all right there, in front of me, the answer I had been searching for my whole life. The power of prayer could change everything. It could destroy strongholds, it could heal, it could protect, but most importantly, it could bring me closer to the one who created it all. Now, when I pray, it's different. It's not just words anymore. It's a direct line to the divine. And I can tell you this from experience. There is nothing more powerful than the moment when you truly understand what prayer can do. The shocking truth, the power of prayer revealed. When I left my body that day, I wasn't just experiencing a near-death event. I was shown something that would change my entire understanding of the world. It wasn't the typical bright light or peaceful feeling that you hear about. What I experienced was much more than that. It was something that terrified me and then gave me a sense of urgency, a realization that I had been living in the dark for far too long. I wasn't alone in that space. In the midst of everything I couldn't explain, I saw Jesus again. But this time, he wasn't just there to comfort me, he was there to reveal something that was far greater than I could have imagined. He told me, very plainly, that there was an incredible power hidden within something so simple, so ordinary. It was prayer. And yet, it was nothing like I had ever been taught or understood. This wasn't about reciting words. It wasn't about going through motions or following traditions. No, prayer was far more than that. It was a direct connection to the divine, a force that could shake the very foundations of the spiritual world. In that moment, I felt like I was being shown something that most people never understand. I saw in vivid detail how every single prayer I had ever uttered was an act of warfare in the spiritual realm. Each one carried weight, power, and consequences. I was given a glimpse of the intense spiritual battle happening around us, every moment of every day. It was overwhelming, to say the least. And then I understood. Jesus showed me that prayer was more than just a way to communicate with God. It was a weapon, one of the most powerful tools at our disposal. But it's a tool that for most people remains underused, misunderstood, and frankly, underestimated. He spoke about the strongholds, spiritual forces that keep us trapped, that block our progress, that hold us back from the life we're meant to lead. The truth is, I had no idea these forces even existed. I didn't realize how many times in my life I had unknowingly opened doors for them to enter. But Jesus made it clear, these strongholds could be broken. With prayer, they could be destroyed. One prayer could obliterate them, shattering their hold over my life, my thoughts, my emotions. And it wasn't just about praying for myself. The moment Jesus spoke those words to me, I realized that prayer wasn't just a personal affair. It was about something much bigger. It was about interceding for others, standing in the gap for the people I loved, for the world itself. Every time we pray, we make a difference, whether we see it or not. Prayer isn't just a conversation. It's a force that moves mountains in the unseen. But here's where it gets chilling. Jesus didn't just show me the good that prayer could do. He also revealed to me the consequences of not praying. It wasn't that I was condemned for it, but I saw the openings, small, unnoticed, quiet, that I had left for the enemy. How every day that passed without prayer, I was leaving a door ajar for those spiritual forces to creep in and have their way with me. I had no idea how much power I had been missing. But what terrified me even more was the realization that most people live their entire lives unaware of the power they hold in their own hands. They don't realize that prayer is a tool that can either protect them or leave them vulnerable. They don't realize that by neglecting to pray, they're leaving themselves exposed to attacks they can't even see coming. And that's the shocking truth. Prayer isn't something that should be saved for moments of desperation. It's not just something we turn to when we feel hopeless. It is a daily practice, a constant weapon in our spiritual arsenal. It is the difference between being exposed and being protected, between being weak and being strong, between living in bondage or living free. As I returned to my body, the weight of this truth didn't leave me. It was more than just knowledge. It was a responsibility, a call to pray, not just for myself, but for others, for everyone. And I haven't stopped since. Because now, I know. The power of prayer is real. It can change everything. It has changed me. The spiritual battle, understanding demonic strongholds and how prayer breaks them. I wish I had known the truth before. I wish someone had told me what I saw that day. The battle happening right in front of us but hidden from our eyes. When I was taken to that place, I saw the forces that fight to control us. It wasn't just light and peace like I expected. No, it was far darker. I could feel it immediately. There was something heavy, something that pressed down on me, something suffocating. It wasn't just an absence of good, but a presence of evil, lurking, waiting. I saw these spiritual forces, demonic strongholds, that work tirelessly to hold us in bondage. These forces don't just exist as vague concepts. They are real, and they are dangerous. I was shown how these strongholds form. They don't appear overnight. They grow slowly over time. Little compromises here and there, little lies, little fears, little wounds left unhealed. Every time we give in to temptation, every time we turn away from the light, these forces get stronger. The more we let them control our thoughts, our actions, our emotions, the more we build these strongholds brick by brick. And one day they're so solid, we don't even see them anymore. We're trapped inside them. believing the lies, thinking that this is just the way life is. But here's the thing. When I was in that place, when I saw what I had built and what others were living in, I was also shown how to break free. The answer, as simple and as powerful as it was, struck me hard. It was prayer. Prayer is not just words we say to ask for help. It's not a ritual. It's not a wish we make in desperation. Prayer is a weapon that, when wielded correctly, can destroy the strongholds of the enemy. I saw, in vivid detail, how these demonic forces shriveled and weakened every time someone prayed with true faith. The more sincere and powerful the prayer, the more these strongholds lost their grip. It was like watching the walls of a prison crumble to dust. The enemy had no defense against the power of prayer. The moment we call on God with a heart full of faith, those strongholds shatter. They can't stand. They can't fight back. But there's a catch. The enemy doesn't want us to know this. He wants us to stay ignorant. He wants us to believe that our prayers don't matter, that they don't work. That's how he keeps us in bondage. He keeps us silent, keeps us distracted, keeps us from praying the way we should. And if we don't pray, those strongholds only grow. It's terrifying to realize how much power we have, and yet how often we don't use it. It's like we're standing on the edge of a cliff, knowing we can leap to safety, but we choose not to jump. We let the strongholds stay because we don't believe we have the power to break them. But the truth is, we do. When I returned to my body, the weight of this knowledge didn't leave me. I could feel the responsibility, the urgency to pray, to not just protect myself, but to break the chains for others. The enemy works in silence. He's sneaky. But prayer, real, sincere prayer, is louder, it's stronger, and it destroys what the enemy has built in secret. The reality is this: prayer is a direct assault on the strongholds of the enemy. When we pray, we fight. When we pray, we win. When we don't, we allow the enemy to continue building, to continue trapping us in lies. And that, I realized, is why prayer is so powerful. It's the only tool we have to break free, to tear down the walls that have been built around us, to destroy the strongholds that keep us captive. Prayer isn't just a nice thing to do. It's a necessity, a matter of life or death. Redemption and mercy, Jesus' invitation to freedom. I'll never forget the moment when everything changed, the moment when I realized I was no longer lost. There I was, trapped in a place of darkness and confusion, my soul feeling heavier than it ever had before. The weight of every mistake, every regret, every failure crushed me. I couldn't escape it. I had no strength left. But then something happened. A light, soft at first, pierced through the blackness. It wasn't blinding, but it was undeniable, and within that light, I saw him, Jesus. At first, I didn't know how to react. His presence wasn't loud, it wasn't demanding, it was gentle, inviting. He didn't condemn me, he didn't remind me of everything I had done wrong. Instead, he extended his hand. I could feel his love, pure, unwavering, unconditional. It didn't matter how far I had fallen, how deep I had gone into my own darkness. He was there, waiting for me. He wasn't asking for perfection. He wasn't demanding I fix everything in my life. He was simply offering a way out, an invitation to freedom. You see, I had always believed that freedom came through strength, through fighting, through pushing back against the struggles. But here in that moment, I realized something far more powerful. True freedom is found in surrender. It's not about fighting to escape the darkness. It's about accepting the light that's already there, waiting to surround you. Jesus didn't judge me for the mistakes I'd made. He didn't hold my failures against me. He simply offered mercy. And in that moment, I understood mercy in a way I never had before. Mercy isn't about overlooking sin. It's about offering a way to be free from it. Mercy is the invitation to change, to heal, to start over. It was then that I understood the power of redemption. Redemption isn't just about forgiveness. It's about restoration. It's about being brought back to the life you were always meant to live, even if you've wandered far from it. Jesus wasn't asking me to be perfect. He was offering a new beginning, a second chance. When he reached for me, I didn't hesitate. I didn't need to say anything. I just reached back. And in that simple act, I was pulled from the darkness, from the weight of my past, into something so much greater. What I felt in that moment wasn't just love, it was freedom. A freedom that comes from knowing I was no longer bound by my past. a freedom that comes from knowing I didn't have to carry the burden of my mistakes anymore. If you're listening to this and you feel lost, trapped, or weighed down by your past, know this: Jesus is waiting with his hand outstretched to you. He's offering you the same mercy, the same freedom. All you have to do is reach back. Because in that moment of surrender, when you stop fighting and simply accept his grace, you'll find a freedom that changes everything. It's not about trying harder or being better on your own. It's about accepting his invitation, the invitation to redemption, the invitation to mercy, the invitation to freedom. The truth is, this freedom isn't just a one-time experience. It's a continual invitation. It's about living each day in the light of that mercy, knowing that no matter how far you've fallen, his hand is always there to lift you up. But what comes after that moment of freedom? What happens when you truly embrace redemption? Well, that's where things get really interesting. When I was on the other side, when everything felt like it was slipping away from me, I reached a moment of complete helplessness. I was alone, surrounded by the overwhelming weight of my past, my failures, and the deep sense of fear that I wouldn't make it out. I didn't know how to fix it. I didn't know where to turn. But there in that dark place, I heard a voice. It wasn't loud or commanding, but it was unmistakable. It was clear. It was powerful. It said, "Pray." At first, I thought I had to do something more, something big, something worthy, but that voice kept repeating, "Just pray." I didn't know what to pray for. I didn't have the right words, but in that moment, I realized something profound. The power wasn't in my words. It was in the act of surrender. The moment I opened my heart, even without knowing exactly what to say, everything changed. I simply said, "Help me." And that was it. In those 3 words, I felt the most overwhelming sense of peace. It wasn't the kind of peace that came from everything being fixed. It wasn't the kind of peace that came from understanding everything. It was the kind of peace that came from knowing that, no matter what, I wasn't alone anymore. And that prayer, so simple, so small, was the turning point. It was like a key unlocking a door that I didn't even realize had been there all along. It wasn't about perfection. It wasn't about getting everything right. It was about reaching out, even just a little, and asking for help. That was the moment I truly understood. A single prayer, no matter how broken or simple, has the power to change everything. You don't have to wait for a perfect moment to pray. You don't have to have all the answers. You don't have to clean yourself up first. You just need to ask. Ask for help. Ask for mercy. Ask for peace. Because in that moment of prayer, something shifts. I'm telling you this because you don't have to wait. You don't have to wait for everything to be perfect. If you're struggling, if you're feeling lost, if you're overwhelmed, it can start with one prayer. Just one. You might feel like you're too far gone or that nothing will change. But trust me, change begins with that first step. Right now, if you feel like you're at a breaking point, if you're holding on to something that's holding you back, all it takes is a prayer. A simple prayer, just like the one I said, "Help me." That's how it all started for me. One prayer, one moment of surrender, and it changed everything. So if you're watching this, don't wait. You might not get another chance to make this shift, to find peace, to begin again. Take that step, take that prayer. It's the moment when everything can change, when you can step out of the darkness and into the light.
Wow. If that didn't make you stop and think, I don't know what will. If you felt the power in this story, make sure to like, subscribe, and share so others can experience this truth too. And don't forget, take a moment now. Leave your prayer in the comments or simply say amen. I can't wait to hear how this might just transform your life as it did mine. See you in the next video.